Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Corinne, and in this installment of the Autumn Diaries, we are going to spend an at-home day together. Whoa, the hair. So Paige, my daughter, and I are having a slow day at home. She is helping me to explore her curly girl method for hair. So you'll see as the day progresses, we've gone through some steps. I'm not supposed to touch it right now. I have put stuff in, I have zhuzhed, I have used the diffuser, all the things. So that's not super, I mean, maybe it is interesting to you. I don't know. We'll find out how it goes the rest of the day. But so today the plan is I am going to make some applesauce muffins. My tried and true recipe. I'll put everything in the description below. I'm going to use the applesauce that I made in the last video, and I think I'm going to make a double batch and freeze half so that Finn can have some when he comes home next weekend. And then Paige and I have some crafty goodness to get to. Last week, at some point, I watched Morgan Long's latest video where she made an Everything Autumn journal. And Paige wasn't home when I was watching it, so I texted her real quick. I was like, we have to do some crafting together. I really want to do this. And so we're not going to make an Everything Autumn journal a la Morgan, but for Mother's Day, so way back in the spring, Paige made me a whimsy journal, a whimsy almanac. So she took a notebook and started filling it with all things whimsical. So things to do, like this one, isn't that page sweet? It says, whisper affirmations and manifestations into your morning tea. Write a letter to your future self. Be kind. And there's an envelope for me to put something in. There's another one. Give unique compliments to people. And then she has a list of them over here. It's gorgeous. And I haven't had a chance to, or I haven't made time to work on it. So I thought I had to do some autumn journaling. Throw a couple autumn spreads in there. So that's what we'll do later today. But just as Paige and I were gathering materials the other day for this project, my dear friend Gina sent me one of the most beautiful gifts I have ever received. I am going to share Gina's Instagram down below in the description because she has this eye that is so clever, and this eye for beauty and this eye for joy and nature and like all of the things. I'm trying to convince her to do stuff off of Instagram and to make her own YouTube, so maybe we can collectively send her some wishes for whatever comes next. And she's a gifted writer as well. But she sent me the most beautiful beginnings of a journal. I'm not going to share all of it because it's very personal, and but it's just, you can probably hear it in my voice. It is such a special gift. It's always such a joy when you feel seen, like truly seen by your people. And I'm lucky enough to have quite a few people in my life who do that for me right now. And I'm very, very grateful. So this page is one of my favorites that she made. She even took one of my pictures from Instagram and put it in here. She did that in a couple pages, and one in particular was of some of my favorite pictures from the summer. And then there's lots of room for me to fill the rest of the pages. So I'm not going to jump into this today, but I just thought it was a perfect time to share that. And yeah, a reminder that let people see who you are. Just let people see who you are, and the right people will be there, and the right people, you know, your people are out there. So, all right, I have my cup of tea. On to applesauce muffins. Are we ready? Let's go. I did end up doubling the recipe in case some of the measurements look different from the recipe that you just saw on the screen. This is probably my most used recipe ever. I don't remember where it came from, maybe on a parenting website or a mommy board from way back in the day. I knew the recipe by heart at one point. I made it multiple times a week. It's a super forgiving recipe that always tastes delicious. I've used different kinds of oils depending on what I had on hand. I've used different kinds of flours depending on the needs of whoever I'm baking for. It's just one that, while I can't eat it because I'm actually allergic to apples, I know my kids enjoy, my husband enjoys, and the smell of it reminds me of when the kids were little. And we'd have tea time and muffins, and sometimes we'd read poetry. But I also remember what it felt like to see little hands reaching up, grabbing muffins, and sitting by the TV, snuggled up, eating muffins and drinking cups of milk. And it just makes me happy. So it just dawned on me that this week that you're watching, or that the video comes out, is the 6th anniversary of my first book making its way into the world. Geez, this hair is so crunchy. I'm not supposed to touch it yet. So 6 years ago, Farm Girl came out. My first love is fiction. I love writing fiction. It is challenging. I have yet to complete a second novel. I'm working on it, but it's challenging, and I think that's why I love it. I also love to write, creative nonfiction, particularly about my life and coziness and all of that, but really and truly fiction is where my heart is. So I thought, while I'm waiting for muffins to finish up, I could read you maybe the first page or two of Farm Girl and see if it's something that's interesting to you. So are we ready? Let's get started. Chapter 1. B. Hampton jumped down from the bed of a two-tone cream and clay 1970s Chevy truck. The ground felt unforgiving beneath her steel-toed boots, but the first frost was yet to come. The softness of summer was fading. Green grass turned to brown more and more each day. Morning dew clung to her boots and dampened the hem of her frayed jeans. She stared out at the rows of apple trees, lined up like rows of soldiers, a bit sloppy in the ranks, branches hanging low with an abundance of fruit. Standing with her hands on her hips, she tried to calculate how many rows the crew would be able to get through by the end of the day. Deep in concentration, she didn't notice the figure approaching from the driver's side of the truck. Cliff Finley, owner of Finley Orchards, stepped beside her and put an arm around her back. His height swallowed her average 5'6" frame, and as she leaned into him, she took in the scent of pipe tobacco and coffee. Her nerves began to fade. "What of you, eh, farm girl?" said Cliff. Bee smiled at the term of endearment, the playfulness in his voice. "It's something. There's a lot of work ahead of us." Still trying to calculate hours and manpower, she sighed. The best she could do was guess. She never remembered Cliff's formula and didn't have his years of experience. "I don't know how you do it every year. Organize everyone and keep them motivated, how you move the orchard through the seasons." Her shoulders shook as Cliff chuckled. "No one moves an orchard through the seasons. We follow its lead. And I do it because I love it, as does every single person who works here. You know that. It's too much work unless you care about this place. You've seen me here working the fields year in and year out since you were a little one. It shouldn't surprise you." His arm fell to his side and he walked back to the truck. The hinge of the tailgate creaked when he lowered it. Then he started moving picking baskets onto the ground. The dozen baskets looked like marching band drums with their straps and handles. White canvas and buckles against a smattering of colors, sun-stained reds and blues, yellows and greens. "The others should be here shortly. Do you remember how to do this?" She laughed. "I may have been away for a few years, but I haven't forgotten." She picked up one of the baskets and put a strap over each arm, adjusting the length. When she clicked the buckle together, it made a loud snap and sent a shiver down her spine in a sweet homecoming sort of way. "It's like riding a bike," she said, grinning at Cliff. "It might not be in my blood, but it's in my heart." Cliff's smile was full of pride. He looked down at a clipboard he had grabbed from the truck and said, "We're focusing on Max this morning, maybe empires in the afternoon. Head on down to the right." Bee followed his gaze and gave a quick nod. She turned and walked between two trees and disappeared into the rows. As a child, she ran through these rows with reckless abandon. In winter months, she stomped through piles of snow and rolled snowballs into snowmen to keep the trees company. In springtime, she sat beneath flowering trees and made fairy houses out of fallen branches. She sought the shade of the trees during the summer months, and then autumn brought obstacle courses of fallen apples and pickers. Cliff gave her the run of the place, even though she was only his neighbor's granddaughter, a family friend. Her grandmother, Sylvia Eaton, lived across the street from Finley Orchards, and Beatrix was sent to her house multiple times during the year, for whole vacations and seasons at a time. Bee didn't mind, though. She enjoyed the comfort and ease of her grandmother's home and the orchard with its whimsy and seasonal changes far more than her parents' stuffy house near the city. Now the orchard was just as inviting as ever. The light only hinted at warmth, and she rubbed her hands together, wishing she brought gloves, and added them to a mental list of things to buy on her first trip into town. She chose a tree and got to work. It was about time she made her way into the small town of Cumberland to say hello to familiar faces and maybe a few new ones. Over dinner the previous night, Cliff mentioned the additions to the local shop lineup: an artisan cheese shop, a craft beer cellar, and a coffee and ice cream shop. The old-fashioned hardware store, run by husband and wife team Olivia and Steve, still sat on the corner across from the gazebo where the Christmas tree stood tall every December. Maybe they'll have work gloves that would do the trick, she thought to herself, picturing something a little softer than the rough gloves she could probably find in Cliff's barn. She wanted something worn in and comfortable, something her grandmother would have, but she couldn't walk in and go through the coat closet like she used to. She couldn't even walk up and knock on the door. Bee's stomach dropped and her breath hitched. She shoved the feeling down and stepped into the branches, enveloped by the fist-sized Max, ready for picking. She nestled the basket between the branches and the tree trunk and lifted her shin against the tree while the base rested on her thigh. She reached for a clump of apples and took one by the hand. All of them were the perfect shade of red, no bruises or blemishes. She lifted the apple gently and rolled it off the branch, and though she placed it carefully in the basket, it made a light thump against the canvas. So that was the first 3 pages. If you're interested, I hope you'll check it out. I'll leave the link below in the description. It's a sweet story, and soon after that, the person who bought Bee's grandmother's house shows up, and and it goes from there. This book has such a tender place in my heart. I really love it, and I hope you do too. And then it was time to scrunch the curls. If you're curious about what we did up until this point, I took a shower in the morning, and with sopping wet hair, I sectioned off my hair and scrunched it with first curl cream, and then I went in with curl gel, and then I diffused it. And here Paige is showing me how to use argan oil rubbed between my hands to break the cast of the curls or the cast of the gel, and then to fluff up the curls. And it turned out not too bad. us for today and our crafty, bakey, cozy sort of day. I am so pleased with this, with this journal and the spreads. They're just simple little things. I don't know if you could tell or read as I panned over them, but I've got nostalgic edible potions instead of calling them recipes. A quote that says, "Autumn kissed the earth and suddenly everything felt like home." I love that. And then just some lists and joys of autumn and important dates for our family for October. So yeah, it's something I think I'll come back to and hopefully revisit. But it was a fun way to spend an afternoon with Paige. We watched some shows and just spent time together and really enjoyed each other's company while we worked on our crafts, because she wasn't working on a journal. She was working on some gifts for someone that ended up being just adorable. And the hair doesn't look too bad. I think there's a little more product than normally works. If you have somewhat fine wavy / curly hair, what do you use? I'm always up for trying different things, because I like when the curls curl, they look really good and I love it, and I just don't want to fuss with it a ton. So yeah, any tips? I'm so tired of going down the rabbit hole of different curly girl methods. So Paige was kind enough to walk me through hers, and she has gorgeous, gorgeous curly hair that's a little more robust than mine is. So I think it was just a little too much product, but I'm not mad, and I have a feeling tomorrow it will probably look even better. So thanks for coming on this edition of the Autumn Diaries, and I hope that you are cozy, that you are well, that you find some autumnal joy for each and every one of these autumn days. Maybe even just a teeny tiny bit that can sprinkle some, autumn fairy dust on the rest of life, which can be really hard. We've had a rough couple weeks here in some ways, rough couple months, it feels like. But having some fun, cozy things to focus on makes the rest of life just a little teeny tiny bit easier to get through. So I hope you find that too. I would love for you to subscribe, comment, like, leave me a note, and say hi and let me know where you're writing from and what you're up to on these autumnal days. So be well, friends, and I will see you next time.